welcome to Fireside Chats with Faust, where we are actually nowhere near a fireplace because, well, my office doesn't have a fireplace. I'm Jessica Faust, president of BookEnds Literary Agency, and today we're going to talk about how an agent comes to the decision to offer representation and how that plays out. Offering representation to a new client is probably one of the most exciting things an agent gets to do, second only, of course, to calling an author, especially a debut author, to let them know that you've gotten an offer on their book. That, hands down, is the highlight of any agent's career, and it gets to happen over and over again, which is amazing. So what happens from the agent side of things when we decide to offer representation? Obviously, every agency is different. I can tell you from my perspective how things happen over here. When I read a book that I fall in love with, I get a physical reaction to it. My heart starts to beat. I have that feeling you get, I think, when you're in a roller coaster and you're anticipating that first drop. You just know something amazing is about to happen. When I have that feeling, it's hard for me to resist picking up the phone and calling the author before I even finish the book. But I will resist, or try to. Once I finish the book and know I'm going to offer, I usually like to give myself a day or an hour just to make sure that I love the book as much as I think I do. And then I always like to call. There's something special about making the phone call and hearing the author's reaction on the phone and being able to actually talk to and get to know the author. I'm sure there are some agents who email it over, but it's just not as exciting. It doesn't have the same feeling, and it's just not personal. And this is a very personal relationship. So if I'm going to take that next step to want to build a relationship with somebody, I'm going to do it in the most personal way I can. So once I make that call, I will call the author, introduce myself, we'll chat a little bit, and then I will spring the news on them, talk about the book, let them know I loved it, and then let them know that I would love to represent them on it. Now, I know for most authors this is sort of a mind-numbing moment. I don't like to say mind-blowing, although I guess it can for some, but it's really mind-numbing. In other words, I know they just go blank, and I anticipate that they go blank. So typically what I will do is sort of talk a little bit about who I am, the way I work, and things like that. Ask the author if they have any questions. Sometimes they do, sometimes they're prepared. Usually, however, we set up time for a second phone call when the author has had time to decompress, put your head together, and then prepare the questions. The second phone call is when we really dig into the nitty-gritty. At this point, my job is to sell myself. I want this author to sign with me and nobody else. And this is where I think for a lot of authors, the roles switch, although technically they don't. Authors spend so much time feeling like they're chasing agents and sort of succumbing to agents' every wish when it comes to querying and sending material and things like that, that when it comes to the offer of representation, my job is to convince you that I'm the best agent. So I will talk a little bit about how BookEnds works. BookEnds has a written contract. I will explain that in a little detail. Typically, though, I will send that to the author so that I think, for me anyway, it's easier to have it in front of me. Then we can get on the phone a third time if necessary to discuss any questions or concerns about our contract. Our contract is very straightforward, as any agency contract should be. It's really just an outline of the expectation each party has for the other on everything from the commission earnings to the exclusivity of working with only one agent and things like that, so that there's no confusion down the road, and everybody has something they can refer to. Then we talk a little bit about how I communicate. I think communication is the base for every good relationship, and the author-agent relationship is just that. It's a business partnership, a relationship, and the most important thing you really need is good communication. Anybody can work through anything if the communication is there. And it's also important that we communicate in similar ways. For me, it's email. I think for most people it's email. I email my authors pretty regularly with all of the information they need. That being said, obviously I'm happy to pick up the phone at any time. I'm also a strong believer in making sure that I am communicating. I'm not the kind of agent who's going to go silent, who's not going to respond to either email or phone call. And the one thing I always say to my clients is, if I haven't responded, something went awry, you should follow up. I typically respond in 1 to 2 days if I'm in the office. If I'm not, you'll get an auto reply or you'll know I'm going to be away. And if you haven't heard from me in 1 to 2 days, then follow up. Spam happens, voicemails get lost, things happen. I am not going to ignore you. That's part of the conversation. The other part of the conversation, I think that is probably the most important part, is vision. An agent is going to have a certain vision for the book. It might be how she's going to sell it. Is she going to sell it as a romance versus women's fiction? As a historical fiction versus a historical mystery? Things like that should be part of the conversation. How do you envision this book? What publishers do you see it going to? That sort of thing. So that you both know the vision for the book matches. Sometimes you'll have a situation where an agent loves the book, but they feel it's better as YA and not the adult market you visioned it for. So looking at things that way and having those conversations are really important. Every author should go into the conversation prepared with some questions and some idea of what they want from an agent or expect of an agent or what kind of agent would work for them. So once you figure that out, the conversation can go rather smoothly. And then it really is just, the ball is in the author's court. At that point, I'm waiting, I'm twiddling my thumbs, I'm panicking, I'm talking to my team about why haven't I heard yet, and I just really want the author to pick me over every other agent that might be offering at the same time. So from an agent's perspective, that's how the call is made and usually goes. I loved telling you these little details. I would love to talk to you more. And if you have more questions based on this or anything else you'd love to see me talk about, please email them in at bookends@bookensliterary.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Cheers and happy writing.